chose another piece to give us something to think about as we share some silence together. It's called Out of the Stars. Out of the stars in their flight, out of the dust of eternity, here have we come, stardust and sunlight, mingling through time and through space. Out of the stars have we come, up from time, out of the stars have we come. Time out of time, before time in the vastness of space, Earth spun to orbit the sun. Earth with the thunder of mountains newborn, the boiling of seas. Earth warmed by sun, lit by sunlight. This is our home. Out of the stars have we come. Mystery hidden in mystery, back through all time. Mystery rising from rocks in the storm and the sea. Out of the stars, rising from rocks and the sea, kindled by sunlight on earth, arose life. Ponder this thing in your heart. Ponder with awe. Out of the sea to the land, out of the shallows came ferns. Out of the sea to the land, up from darkness to light, rising to walk and to fly. Out of the sea trembled life. Ponder this thing in your heart. Life up from sea, eyes to behold, throats to sing, mates to love. Life from the sea, warmed by sun, washed by rain. Life from within, giving birth, rose to love. This is the wonder of time. This is the marvel of space. This is the stars swung the earth. Life upon earth rose to love. This is the marvel of life, rising to see and to know. Out of your heart cry wonder, sing that we live. Let's spend a few moments together in silence. And now take a breath and return to this space. I chose that piece because it seemed to me, and it's good to remind ourselves where we started. And it's good to remind ourselves of the enormous space within which we can live into and still become. We are still becoming. So that's what I have to say about that. But this time it's really a pleasure to, I don't know that I have to introduce Barbie to you because she's been with us twice on Zoom, but for the first time she's here in person because she had the sense to move a little closer. I'm just going to leave that there. And also the sign outside is kind of wrong because she's not going to talk about Christian nationalism, although she says that would be a topic we should unpack, but it would take probably more than we can do today. So the title is actually Elegy 2025. And I think it would just be smart if I let you say more about that. But we're delighted to have her here, and President Mike is here too. So let us welcome Marty.
Well, I'm really glad to be here and have a chance to be with you in person. Elegy 2025. An elegy is a lament for a departed beloved or a tragic event. It can be personal or collective. And it expresses, it's somber in tone. It expresses the author's sorrow for that which has been lost. So I attended a liberal Methodist seminary in Ohio. It's called Methodist Theological School in Ohio. And it houses a program called UU Studies that is run by a UU minister. And that meant that frequently I took classes alongside Methodist seminarians. And sometimes they would ask me, what is the central text? What is the sacred scripture of Unitarian Universalism? And I would reply with a phrase that I heard from a UU minister, Meredith Garman, at General Assembly a few years ago. He said, we have an open canon, and that is one of the most radical things about Unitarian Universalism. We take our commitment to engage in an ongoing and responsible search for truth and meaning very seriously. When I graduated from seminary just a year ago, in May 2024, Joe Biden was still president. A few weeks later, there was a disastrous debate, and most of us could see that drove the final stake in the heart of his campaign. By August, Kamala Harris had stepped in. She was an energizing presence. She brought hope that we might avoid the specter of another Trump term. And I was watching the convention, the Democratic convention. I saw all that white in the auditorium, the suffragist white, and I was really moved by that. And I felt optimistic, so optimistic that I went out and bought a white suffragist dress. And it's not all that often I buy something retail. I have a closet full of thrift store shopping. And it's still there. It's lovely. It's emblematic of hope with all of its tags still in place. And through all that, I was reading and reading and reading. Reading the lovely open canon of Unitarian Universalism. Reading about the emerging Unitarian Universalist voices that are deepening our movement by introducing a language of reverence into our humanism. Creating religious natural humanism. Reading about Theodore Parker's activism in reaction to the Fugitive Slave Act of 1850. Reading about the social gospel and its quest to make the kingdom of God a reality in this world. Reading about alternatives to the harmful doctrine of redemptive suffering, which really, if this is originally a Universalist church, that is the foundation of Universalism. But the book that resulted in a crystallization of consciousness for me was just such a moment of dissonance that I felt like I was living in an alternative universe, was when I read Bell Hooks' Teaching Community, a Pedagogy of Hope. In Teaching Community, Hooks eloquently made the case for progressive education as practice of freedom. To read Hooks in 2025 is to fully experience a sense of what is being dismantled day by day, of all that we stand to lose. Hooks sought to return our educational system, or to reform it, so that school is not where students, I'm quoting now, school is not where students are indoctrinated to support imperialist, white supremacist, capitalist patriarchy. And reading this in 2025 is a soul-searing experience. Here's what she wrote in 2003 In the last 20 years, educators who have dared to study and learn new ways of thinking and teaching, so the work we do does not enforce systems of domination or imperialism, racism, sexism, or class elitism that have created a pedagogy of hope. Hopefulness empowers us to continue our work for justice, even as the forces of injustice may gain greater power for a time. As teachers, we enter the classroom with hope. Educating is always a vocation rooted in hopefulness. Progressive education. This is still books. Education as the practice of freedom enables us to confront feelings of loss and restore our sense of connection. It teaches us how to create community, practical wisdom about what we can do and can continue to do to make the classroom a place that is life-sustaining and mind-expanding, a place of liberating mutuality where teacher and students work together in partnership. I hope to illuminate the space of the possible where we can work to sustain our hope and create community with justice as the core foundation. As I work my way through my enormous reading list, a task which is still ongoing, 2 books have been my companions. One is Jason Stanley's book, How Fascism Works: The Politics of Us and Them. And the other is The Wild Edge of Sorrow by psychotherapist Francis Weller. So here's what Stanley has to say about education and fascism. Fascist politics seeks to undermine public discourse and devaluing education by attacking and devaluing education, expertise, and language. Intelligent debate is impossible without an education with access to different perspectives, a respect for expertise when one's own knowledge gives out, and a rich enough language to precisely describe reality. When education, expertise, and linguistic distinctions are undermined, there remains only power and tribal identity. This does not mean, still Stanley, this does not mean there is no role for universities in fascist politics. In fascist ideology, there is only one legitimate viewpoint, that of the dominant nation. Schools introduce students to the dominant culture and its mythic past. So what would an educational system look like that serves only to introduce students to the dominant culture and its mythic past? Well, here's an executive order from January 29th of this year that gives you a pretty good idea. It's called Reestablishing the 1776 Commission and Promoting Patriotic Education. The purpose of the 1776 Commission is to promote patriotic education and advance the purposes stated in Section 1 of Executive Order blah, 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 as well as to advise and promote the work of the White House Task Force on celebrating America's 250th birthday. In their efforts to provide a grand celebration worthy of the momentous anniversary of American independence on July 4th, 2026. The 1776 Commission shall, in coordination with the White House Office of Public Liaison, coordinate bi-weekly lectures regarding the 250th anniversary of American independence that are grounded in patriotic education principles, which shall be broadcast to the nation throughout calendar year 2026. So we have that to look forward to. So my other book that has been my touchstone as I read is Francis Weller's Wild Edge of Sorrow. And he speaks of our collective grief. Grief at the loss of cultures, habitat, species, languages, a grief so immense that our psyches must suppress it. And yet it generates a persistent hum of sorrow, at times overtaking us. And I know that we are all feeling that persistent hum. We experience it as we watch the dismantling of government agencies that provide food to famine-stricken areas, life-saving medicines to those who suffer from AIDS and other deadly diseases that medical science is now capable of treating or eradicating. I feel it when I see bags of grain embargoed in African ports, emblazoned with the phrase, "A gift from the American people." Such a potent phrase, that one, containing entire words of meaning in 6 simple words. That we are a people of generosity and goodwill. That these are values to be upheld. That of course we want to help each other, others, we want to help others. And that it is natural to want to share our abundance. The hum grows more insistent. This is a soul-searing experience as well. I feel it as I read Rita Nagashima Brock and Rebecca and Parker, 2 they're Unitarian ministers who came out of a liberal Christian background. And they wrote a remarkable book called Proverbs of Ashes: Violence, Redemptive Suffering, and the Search for What Saves Us. And in that, they recount women being counseled by their priests and ministers to stay in violent relationships. Alongside that, I read resurrected reports of then Senate candidate J.D. Vance in 2021, remarking that women should stay in violent marriages because changing spouses shouldn't be as simple as changing your underwear. I've also read those same 2 scholarly authors describing Christianity's shift toward militarism during the Crusades. Their book is Saving Paradise: How Christianity Traded Love for This World for Crucifixion and Empire. And on cue, which is exquisitely timed, comes Pete Hegseth with his Crusader tattoo and with the phrase Des Volt, God wills it. And he unabashedly explains how these tattoos express his warrior persona. Again, a soul-searing experience. And I'm sure that yesterday's events, as I was writing this, they hadn't unfolded, but I allowed as how they were going to provide fresh fodder for this litany of soul-searing experiences. And there were soul-searing experiences and uplifting ones. Mike and I were in Fort Wayne, and they acquitted themselves as well with, I think there were probably a couple thousand people downtown. And it was great for us. We were there looking at houses, and and enjoying Fort Wayne, and we found the demonstration. My brother-in-law, David Danino, suggested that an alternative title for this sermon could be The Oft-Seared Soul. The bookcase in my tiny home office just bursts with forbidden knowledge, dangerous histories, things like womanism, feminism, Black history, indigenous religion, multiculturalism, queer theology, DEI, radical welcome of stranger, sanctuary, concepts that are just at the core of who I am, and I embrace with all my heart and soul. And then I discover that Christian nationalism, a movement currently at the center of power in the United States, not only rejects these ideas, it considers them demonic, the cause of all that it perceives as wrong in our society, something to be eradicated. Teacher is ordered to take down a sign that says everyone is welcome. And the only reason is because the hands depicted in the sign are different colors, representing different races. And of course, we can't have this poisoning the minds of our youth. So what does it mean as I stand on the threshold of becoming a Unitarian Universalist minister in 2025? What can ministry offer for UUs and Unitarian Universalism in 2025? What does this moment call for? It calls for a lot, beloveds, so much. I feel called first and foremost to help every Unitarian Universalist find their prophetic voice, a voice that will allow our message to be heard, a voice that brings a moral and ethical discernment to bear on the issues of the day. Language that celebrates human embeddedness in a world that is everywhere sacred, that seeks justice and marries justice to mercy, and that offers alternatives to ecological devastation, poverty, and racism. What might that sound like? It sounds like this. My faith affirms the inherent worth and dignity of every living being. Human beings are not inherently flawed. Although capable of great evil, we are also capable of incredible kindness, courage, and compassion. The divine resides within each of us. My faith demands that I face my country's history in all its complexity and work to dismantle the forces of oppression that keep it from reaching its true potential. So those statements express the prophetic face of our faith. And I'd also like to say a few words about the pastoral. This is a moment to recognize the moral injury that is inevitable when we are forced to witness vengeance being visited on those least able to resist. It happens when we are unable to protect the powerless. So our grief for the harm being inflicted on the poor, the marginalized, the helpless, the innocent, where can that grief be held? Where can we go to open ourselves and take in the sorrows of the world? Unitarian Universalism offers a place where we can be both overwhelmed by the grief of the world and healed by beloved community. The need is great. The work awaits. May we meet the moment. Thank you. It's fine. I have been feeling the lack of a pulpit with a lot to say.
Well, just coincidentally, we happen to have one. I think we have more than one moment. You could choose which one you like the best. Thank you so much for that. I look forward to having you at our reflection table, drinking some reasonably good coffee if you like it. Okay, I have some closing words here from Laura Lynn Bellamy. If here you have found freedom, take it with you into the world. If you have found comfort, go and share it with others. If you have dreamed dreams, help one another that they might come true. If you have known love, give some back to a bruised and hurting world. Go in peace.